My husband Wade thought it would be funny to abandon me as a prank, left me shivering beside broken gas pumps while his engine disappeared down the road. That night should have destroyed me. Instead, I followed a stranger into the mountains, buried my past, and built a life so powerful he had to beg the world to find me. We'd driven out that morning with Wade's idiot crew, Micah, Jordan, and Vance, all of them hyped up on energy drinks and ego. Wade said we were doing something epic for my birthday. "We're filming this one," he grinned, slipping a blindfold over my eyes. "Total trust test, babe." I thought we were headed for some rented cabin, a spa, maybe even a lame karaoke bar, not a gas station 80 miles outside the city. Not alone. Not like this. I tried flagging down a car, but no one stopped. A trucker honked and kept going. My legs turned to jelly. I crouched behind a trash can, dry heaving. My chest hurt. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, "Why?" That's when it clicked. This was a prank. Another one of Wade's viral stunts. The last one involved a fake eviction notice and a GoPro hidden in our ceiling vent. But this one was worse. This one wasn't just cruel. It was dangerous. I wiped my face with the edge of my sleeve and stood. If I stayed put, I'd be the butt of a joke. If I walked, I'd be a ghost. So I walked. 3 miles down a dusty side road. My feet blistered. I saw the headlights. A small car pulled over. A woman stepped out. Tall, older, leather gloves, long gray braid, and eyes that made me freeze. "Signora," she said, voice low and sharp. "You're bleeding." I didn't ask how she knew Italian was my comfort language. I just nodded. She took my elbow and led me to her car like it was already decided. "I'm Gia," she said. "And you don't need to go back to whoever did this." I opened my mouth to argue. Nothing came out, so I let her drive. Away from the joke. Away from Wade. Away from who I used to be. Gia's car smelled like tobacco and lavender. I curled into the seat, clutching a scratchy blanket she tossed over me. She didn't ask questions. Not then. She just drove, past dark fields and shuttered shops, into hills that caught the last scraps of sunset. I watched the gas station lights shrink in the rearview mirror until they blinked out completely. We reached a crumbling stone villa around midnight. The gravel crunched under the tires as Gia pulled into a courtyard rimmed with olive trees. "Casa mia," she said, waving a hand like it was no big deal. I stumbled out, stiff and shivering. The house loomed above us, lit only by one porch bulb. Inside smelled like wood smoke, lemons, and something else. Earthy, old. Gia pointed upstairs. "Baggio, clean up, clothes in the drawer. Tomorrow we speak." I nodded mutely. My throat was raw, like I'd swallowed smoke. The bathroom was tiny, tiles cracked and cool under my feet. I peeled off my ruined clothes and found a heavy linen dress in the dresser upstairs. When I caught sight of myself in the mirror, I flinched. Bloodied heels, mud-streaked arms, mascara clawed down my cheeks. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. And for the first time since Wade blindfolded me, a tiny thought slipped into my mind. Maybe that was a good thing. I slept under a thick quilt that smelled faintly of sun and vinegar, dreamless, heavy. When I woke, Gia was already outside, pruning vines with brutal precision. She handed me gloves and pointed to a row thick with weeds. "You want to stay? You work." It wasn't a question. I dug into the earth with a cheap trowel, feeling my muscles scream. I didn't stop. At lunch, we sat under a sagging pergola, eating cold bread and tomatoes. Gia finally broke the silence. "Name?" she asked. I hesitated, then lied. "Mel." She nodded like she didn't care whether it was true. "Mel. You know logistics?" A flicker of old pride surfaced. I nodded. 4 years ago, during my exchange year in Florence, I'd interned with a shipping firm. I spoke fluent Italian. I could draw up a customs document in my sleep. "Good," Gia said, standing. "You learn exports, wine, olive oil. You work hard, I protect you." Simple terms. No pity. No promises. It was the first offer I'd gotten in years that wasn't loaded with strings. I stood up, my legs shaking but my heart steadier than it had been in months. "Deal," I said. And right there, under the brittle afternoon sun, Melanie Carr, the woman Wade tried to break, ceased to exist. Gia didn't waste time. By the end of that week, I had a clipboard, a battered laptop, and a list of tasks that would terrify a first-year paralegal. Customs filings, export insurance, VAT exemptions, all under a name that wasn't mine anymore. Mel Conti, Gia said, slapping down a set of forged papers. Family from Naples. Nobody will dig too hard. I ran my fingers over the cheap lamination. I wasn't scared. I wasn't anything. I was becoming someone new. My first big test came fast. A last-minute shipment, 2 pallets of vintage Barolo, had to clear customs by Friday. Problem was, Gia's regular export clerk had gotten sloppy. Wrong invoice dates, mismatched weights, red flags all over. Gia found me in the cellar, sleeves rolled up, loading crates. "You fix or we lose it all," she said, tossing me a stained ledger. "And you lose me." I nodded, throat tight. No time for panic. I brewed strong coffee, sat at the crooked kitchen table, and started pulling the documents apart. By midnight, I had 3 new invoices, corrected bills of lading, and a customs inspection waiver request. All perfect. All traceable back to Mel Conti. Not Melanie Carr. Gia skimmed them the next morning, didn't even smile, just jerked her chin toward the export truck pulling up the drive. "Ride with them. Deliver papers yourself. If anyone asks, you trained in Florence. Old boss loved your work." The truck stank of diesel and cheap cologne. I wedged myself between crates, clutching the manila envelope like it was a bomb. At the customs gate, a thin inspector in mirrored sunglasses flagged us down. My heart jackhammered against my ribs. He tapped the papers once, twice, then gave me a long, slow look. "You're new." I kept my smile small, fresh from Firenze. Dottore Bertelli trained me. I slipped the name Gia had coached me to drop. The inspector grunted. He stamped the papers, waved us through. As we lurched back onto the highway, I leaned against the rattling metal wall and exhaled so hard my chest ached. I wasn't just running anymore. I was rebuilding. Beat by beat, lie by lie, step by shaky step. And somewhere, far across the ocean, Wade Carr was probably laughing at the prank he thought ended me. He had no idea. I wasn't broken. I was becoming bulletproof. The first time I saw Victor St. James, he was furious. Not loud, not sloppy, cold furious, like a glacier sliding toward a village that never saw it coming. He stood in Gia's vineyard courtyard, navy suit too crisp for our dust-choked air, speaking fast, low Italian to one of her senior managers. Gia marched past me, motioning sharply. "Come, translate, fix." I wiped my hands on my jeans and followed. The manager was wilting under Victor's stare. Something about a lost shipment. Wrong vintage year. A French broker blaming an Italian distributor. The usual corporate chaos, but with real money behind it this time. Victor turned when he heard my voice. His eyes, icy blue, nearly silver, met mine. Calculating, waiting. I steadied my breath and translated, keeping my voice firm but respectful. Every word hung between us like a tiny test. Victor listened, nodded once, then addressed me directly in flawless English. "You understand contracts, Miss Conti?" My mouth dried. "Very well, sir." He tipped his head, assessing. "Follow me." We sat at a battered picnic table while Gia's staff scrambled to re-inventory the cellar. Victor dropped a sheaf of papers in front of me. His company logo, Street James Maritime and Freight, blazed across the top. "We've got a logistics disaster," he said. "Someone's trying to swap out high-grade Italian vintage for cheap French imports. I need it untangled. Quietly." I scanned the documents. Bills of lading, shipping manifests, handwritten inventory lists. It wasn't just messy, it was deliberate fraud. I swallowed hard. My paralegal instincts kicked in, muscle memory sharp after years of contracts and compliance. "Give me 1 hour," I said, "and I'll tell you who's lying." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. 30 minutes, he said instead. Impress me. I worked at the side table, fingers flying over calculations, cross-checking vineyard serial numbers against the shipping logs, matching cork imprints to vintage years. 31 minutes later, close enough, I slid the folder back across to him. "Your broker and lion's dirty," I said. "Proof's on page 3. Victor flipped through the sheets, pausing, then leaning back. "Gia said you were new," he murmured. I shrugged, heart hammering. Not to paperwork. He studied me for a long moment, like he was seeing past the second-hand clothes, the dirt under my fingernails. Finally, he tapped the table once with 2 fingers. Tomorrow. Come aboard my ship. I blinked. What for? To work, he said simply, unless you prefer vineyards. My pulse roared in my ears. I didn't know it yet. But that battered table was the beginning of everything. The beginning of Victor. Of the yacht. Of the life Wade would never touch. Victor's yacht wasn't a boat. It was a floating kingdom. 3 decks high. Polished teak. Windows the size of movie screens. The name Verite gleamed in gold script on the hull. I boarded at dawn. Heart knotted so tight I could barely swallow. A young steward met me with a nod. Miss Conti? This way. I followed him past suites, bigger than my old apartment. Marble counters. Silk bedding. A breakfast bar set for 10. I tried not to stare, but my eyes caught on every detail. This wasn't wealth. This was silence money. The kind that moves behind closed doors and never has to explain itself. Victor waited in a private salon, reading a newspaper in 3 languages. He looked up. You're punctual. Good. He handed me a tablet. This is a non-disclosure agreement. Read carefully. Then we begin. I scanned it. 6 figures of legalese boiled down to one thing. Whatever I saw, I didn't speak of it. I signed. My fingers didn't even shake. The first week blurred. Victor kept me close. Always working, always watching. I organized shipping audits, cross-checked port taxes, flagged a forged customs license from Corsica. Every problem I solved earned a nod. Sometimes a well done. Nothing more. But I noticed things. Victor didn't smile often, but when he did, it looked like it hurt. He spoke to his staff with respect, but kept every one of them exactly 1 step away. Including me. He took his coffee black, his newsprint dry, his evenings silent, reading beside the helipad under a heat lamp, wind tugging at his cuffs. He never mentioned a wife, and he never asked about my past. That was a gift I didn't take lightly. One night, I stayed late, recalibrating tariffs on a shipment from Cyprus. He stepped into the office barefoot, tie loose. You should sleep, he said. I looked up. It's easier when no one's talking. He tilted his head, considering. You like quiet. I nodded. Too many years with noise. A pause. Then, you're running from someone. I didn't flinch. Aren't we all? He didn't smile, but he didn't look away either. Finally, he said, You're competent, Miss Conti. Keep working. The yacht leaves for Athens next week. And just like that, I was no longer a guest. I was on board. Back in my cabin, I sat on the edge of the bed, tablet in my lap, heart pounding. I hadn't just stepped into a new life. I'd disappeared into it. And Wade? Wade still thought I was stranded, pitiful, broken. Good. Let him. 3 years. That's how long I'd stayed hidden. Mel Conti had a spotless paper trail. Taxes paid. Contracts signed. Passport stamped clean in 7 countries. And then, just like that, Wade's smug face burst into my world again, through a blurry clip on the yacht's satellite TV. He was crying. Fake crying, of course. Melanie, if you're out there, he said, voice shaking. Just know I'm sorry. Please come home. A lower third banner flashed. Viral husband pleads for missing wife. Was it a prank gone wrong? I dropped the tablet. Victor looked up from across the room, where he was reviewing shipping tariffs. Something wrong? I tried to speak. Nothing came out. He set the papers aside. Take your time. I pointed to the screen. The footage looped. Wade at a podium, flanked by his frat idiot crew, dabbing his eyes with a hoodie sleeve. Victor watched in silence. Is that someone you know? I exhaled. That's my husband. The word felt foreign in my mouth. Heavy, rotting. Victor didn't flinch. Was? Legally, I said. Barely. He nodded, slowly. He's drawing attention. I stood, pacing. My whole body buzzed. They're trying to make me the villain now. Like I ran away. Victor steepled his fingers. Did you? No. I snapped, then steadied my voice. They left me at a gas station. For likes. Victor leaned forward slightly. Do you want to stay invisible? I paused. My lungs ached with the question. I want to stay free. He nodded once. Then we'll ensure that. 2 hours later, his legal advisor, Petra, called me into the strategy room. We flagged your old social ID in a Nevada police bulletin, she said. Wade reported you missing. Twice. Suspicious timing. She slid a paper across the table. It was a digital trail of Wade's report history, filed just 2 weeks before his social media sob story started trending. He didn't want to find you, Petra said. He wanted to own your comeback. Victor tapped the screen behind her. Interpol might ping this alias soon, but if you transfer your ID to a diplomatic partner registry, you're shielded. I blinked. That's possible? Victor's voice was calm. For my wife, yes. The room spun. You want to marry me? His eyes didn't leave mine. Not for show. But yes. No flowers. No pretense. Just protection and partnership. Power in the open. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Okay, I said. Let's do it. Because if Wade wanted headlines, I'd give him a front-page nightmare. The wedding was quiet. No veil. No bouquet. Just notarized papers. And a coastal breeze that smelled like citrus and salt. Victor signed first. His signature flowed like he'd done this before. I followed. Hand steady. Melanie Carr disappeared in ink. Mel Conti became Mel St. James, wife of a man who moved fleets with a phone call. Petra filed the paperwork under diplomatic registry. The yacht became Swiss territory, my alias now legal in 7 jurisdictions. Wade couldn't touch me, not even with a warrant. And still, I didn't smile. Not until I saw the headline, Missing Wife Found Alive, Now Married to Billionaire Shipping Tycoon. Underneath, a grainy photo of me disembarking Verite in a tailored cream suit, sunglasses on, Victor's hand at the small of my back. It went nuclear. Wade's search unraveled overnight. His Reddit fanboys turned on him. Someone leaked a draft video from his old phone. The original prank, my blindfolded screams, spliced with fart sound effects. The plan was to release it after she cools off. Only I never cooled off. I disappeared. And now I'd reappeared on a billionaire's yacht. A woman reborn. Victor found me in the galley the night the video leaked. I was halfway through a bottle of Barolo, flipping through comment threads like a detective in a revenge movie. You're viral, he said mildly, setting down 2 glasses. I'm bait, I said. Any bit. He poured, slow and even. Do you want to disappear again? I looked up. No, I want him to choke on my existence. Victor raised his glass. To that, we clinked. It didn't feel like victory, not yet. But it felt like altitude. Like rising above everything Wade thought he'd buried me under. The next day, I got a message from someone unexpected. Detective Rinna Bosch, from Reno PD. She'd investigated my missing person case. Now she wanted a statement. Off record. We met at a secure dock in Nice. She wore a gray windbreaker and carried a recorder, but didn't turn it on. I knew something didn't add up, she said, handing me a copy of the original case file. But Wade was charming. And you? You vanished. I sipped espresso. Steady. Wasn't charm. It was cruelty with good lighting. Rinna smiled faintly. He's under investigation now. Not just for the prank. There's chatter about insurance fraud, sponsorship scams, even staged break-ins. I said nothing. Just let the sun warm my face. Why now? I asked. She leaned back. Because you stopped hiding. And just like that, I wasn't prey anymore. I was the headline. And Wade was drowning in it. The Monaco Gala was invitation only. Royal families, oil heirs, tech kings, everyone glittered under chandeliers the size of small planets. I stepped off the yacht in a silver gown, stitched so fine it caught every camera flash like a net. Diamonds dripped from my ears. Victor's arm slid through mine, solid and sure. We weren't there to blend in. We were there to be seen. Inside, the ballroom hummed with soft laughter and sharp ambition. Waiters drifted with champagne flutes balanced like weapons. Victor murmured, "Smile once." I did. slow and deliberate. The photographers swarmed. Flash, flash. Victor St. James and new bride attend first public gala. The headline practically wrote itself. I could feel Wade's world unraveling from across the ocean. Or so I thought. Until he showed up. I spotted him near the entrance. Cheap tuxedo, skin flushed, eyes frantic. Security flanked him, hesitating. The organizers hadn't dared deny entry to concerned husband seeking his missing wife. My stomach clenched. Old terror prickled up my spine. But I didn't step back. I let him see me. Victor glanced over, reading my body language in a second. Handle him, he said simply, stepping aside. A clear signal. This moment was mine. I walked forward, heels clicking like gunshots. Wade barreled toward me, arms wide like some tragic martyr. Melanie, baby, you're confused. You've been brainwashed. The cameras turned. The whispers multiplied. I tilted my chin, letting the diamonds catch the light. I reached for Victor's hand, laced our fingers, and kissed his cheek. Slow, certain. I turned back to Wade, voice carrying across the marble floor. You mistake survival for confusion, Wade. His face cracked open, shock bleeding into rage. You're my wife, he shouted. Your property. The word echoed through the room like a bullet. And just like that, he lost. Faces turned away. Reporters scribbled faster. Phones lifted, recording every second. Security finally stepped in, seizing Wade by the elbows. He thrashed, shouting nonsense about loyalty, about love, about how real women don't betray family. I stood still, letting it all fall apart without lifting a finger. Victor returned to my side, offering a glass of champagne like a medal. You did well, he said under his breath. I smiled, small and lethal. I'm just getting started. By morning, the Monaco footage had gone global. The kiss, the gown, Wade's meltdown, clips of him screaming about ownership aired on every morning show from Paris to Pittsburgh. My inbox exploded. Some were apologies, some were threats. Most just said, how did you do it? Short answer, I didn't run. I rebuilt. Long answer, Interpol. Petra met me in Victor's office with a thick dossier and a look that said, you're about to be bulletproof. Interpol has verified your identity, she said, tapping the first page. Under international records, you are now Melina Conti Street, James, legal resident of Switzerland, spouse of a protected diplomat. She slid a copy of the ruling across the desk. Embossed, sealed, ironclad. They've officially closed the missing person case. And they've reclassified Wade's report as intentional misdirection. I raised an eyebrow. That's the polite term? She smirked. The impolite one is, quote, criminal fraud. By week's end, Wade had been fined for filing false reports, suspended from his streaming platform, and subpoenaed over 3 old prank videos tied to minor injuries. One of his sponsors dumped him mid-live stream. He stammered for 10 minutes, then threw his ring at the camera. I watched it all from Verité's media suite, wrapped in a silk robe, sipping coffee. Victor didn't gloat. He simply said, this is what happens when amateurs pick fights with architects, and I'd never felt more seen. But the best part wasn't the collapse. It was the silence that followed. My name stopped trending. No more debates about whether I overreacted. No more edited footage of me crying behind a dumpster. Just one final press release from my team. Mrs. St. James has no further comment at this time. She thanks the public for their interest and their distance. And they obeyed. Because now, I wasn't a victim. I was an entity. The kind you don't approach without clearance. One afternoon, Gia called from the vineyard. Ho visto le notizie, she said, voice warm. I saw the news. I grinned. You like the gown? She laughed. I like the stare. Cold. Like mine. We said nothing for a while. Just sat with the quiet. Then she said, ready for your first solo shipment. And just like that, I was back to work. Back to contracts and port codes and precision. Because freedom isn't fame. It's knowing you don't owe a damn soul your story. The gas station still had the same crooked sign. The one that read, Back AT 6 inches in faded Sharpie. The same gravel lot. Same broken security light blinking like a dying heartbeat. I parked across the street and just watched it. My hands didn't shake, my breath didn't hitch. But somewhere under my ribs, a knot I hadn't touched in 3 years slowly started to loosen. Victor didn't ask why I wanted to come here. He just made a quiet call and said, "Make the offer generous. We want it off-market by Monday." It took 2 weeks to finalize, 3 to get permits, and 6 months later, the gas station where Wade dumped me blindfolded became Second Sunrise. A rest stop, yes, but also a shelter. Clean bathrooms, showers, coffee, vouchers for safe rides, a discreet office in the back for women in transit, legal aid, translation services, emergency cell phones. Gia sent wine for the opening. Victor stood beside me as the ribbon fell. I gave a speech, short and steady. We all have a gas station, a place where someone left us behind. This one, now it brings people forward. A woman came through our doors last week. Tired eyes, no luggage, cheeks wet. She stared at the welcome sign. This place is too nice for what I am. I shook my head. No, it's exactly nice enough. She smiled through her tears. I handed her a coffee. And my card. On the back, in quiet gold letters, M. St. James, Executive Director. Below it, a note in my handwriting, "You are not what they did to you." She folded it slowly, like it was something sacred. And for the first time since we opened, I cried in the storage room after. Not out of grief, out of clarity. The day I got the deed, I left one thing unchanged. The concrete slab behind Pump 3. The same place my heels had burned through my stockings that night. Where I'd knelt behind the trash bin, whispering Wade's name through cracked lips. I left it bare. On purpose. So every time I walked past it, I'd remember, not the pain, but the ignition. Because that wasn't where it ended. That's where it began. Petra slid the resume across my desk like it was radioactive. "Came in this morning," she said, deadpan. "Application for deckhand, crew rotation for Verite. Check the name." I didn't need to, I already knew. But I looked anyway. Wade Carr age, 42 experience, former content creator, adventure leadership, skilled in social media management and marine safety. He'd even listed drone piloting as a skill. God help him. I stared at the document, something in me pulling taut. He didn't know. Didn't know I was part owner of this fleet now. Didn't know Petra reported directly to me. Didn't know his plea for a paycheck would land in my hands. Victor walked in just then, reading my face like a script. "Is it him?" I nodded. "It's him." He said nothing, just placed a glass of still water beside my elbow. Like a peace offering. He listed 3 fake certifications, Petra added, flipping to the second page, and 1 expired lifeguard license from 2008. I let out a quiet laugh. Not cruel. Just tired. Tired of the full circle nonsense. Tired of him always assuming doors would open if he smiled wide enough. I turned the resume over. Blank. Empty. Just like the apology I never got. Petra asked, "Do we reject formally?" I shook my head. "Don't reply at all." Victor looked up, one eyebrow raised. "Not even a rejection?" "No," I said, eyes fixed on the paper. "He's not worth the clarity. Let him wonder. Let him check his inbox for days. Let him spiral, thinking maybe he spelled something wrong. Maybe they lost it. Maybe it just wasn't the right timing. Because that's what people like him fear most. Not confrontation, but irrelevance." Later that evening, I walked the top deck of Verite, wind brushing my shoulders like a shawl made of air. Below, the sea stretched wide and dark and endless. And in it, somewhere, Wade was probably pitching another bad podcast idea. Or trying to trend. Or blaming everyone but himself. But up here, I was untouchable. Victor found me near the bow, hands on the rail. "Petra mailed his application to archives," he said lightly. "Filed under miscellaneous regret." I snorted. "Perfect." He looked at me. "You could have destroyed him." "I did," I said softly. "By building something he'll never be part of." And in that silence, wrapped in sea spray and moonlight, I knew. This wasn't revenge. It was freedom, wearing diamonds. The envelope arrived without a return address. Just a plain manila rectangle. Slid under the office door in Monaco. Petra found it and called me in. Didn't come through the mailroom, she said, voice flat. Someone placed it here. Victor stood behind her, silent. I peeled it open with one steady motion. Inside, a grainy train ticket stub, scorched at the edge. Nevada to San Francisco. 3 years ago. And a note. Funny what your fingerprints still stick to. Careful who you pretend to be. W. I stared at it. Not out of fear, out of disbelief. He'd found a breadcrumb. A half-burned receipt I must have dropped when hitching that cross-country ride to the airport. It wasn't even damning. But to Wade? It was leverage. A last gasp. He's threatening exposure? Petra asked, folding her arms. Trying to, I said. But he doesn't know how airtight the ID conversion was. Victor picked up the note, scanned it once. He's fishing, not threatening. Yet. Petra pulled out her phone. We'll sweep the archives, trace his movements. But if you want to respond, I raised a hand. No, not yet. That night, alone in the stateroom, I pulled out the old duffel from the back of the closet. The one thing I'd kept. Inside. The shoes I wore the day Wade left me. Split soles. Blood at the heel seam. And my old Nevada ID Melanie Carr. Not Melina. Not Mrs. St. James. Just the girl he left behind. I looked at that ID a long time. Then I made a decision. I booked a private room at a gallery cafe in Florence. Sent one invitation. To Wade. No return address. Meet me. One time. One truth. Victor didn't ask why. He just had security trail to drop. Is this for closure? Petra asked. No, I said. It's for insurance. Because I knew Wade. He wouldn't go to police. He wouldn't press charges. He'd try to twist the narrative. Make me beg. Trade silence for power. But what he didn't know, I already had the original video file. The one from his prank. The one his idiot friend Jordan saved to the cloud. Public folder. No password. And at that cafe in Florence, I was going to slide it across the table. Watch Wade's eyes when he realized he never had a damn card to play. The cafe was quiet. Soft jazz. Marble floors. A barista polishing spoons like they were made of gold. I picked a corner table facing the entrance. Back to the wall. Just like Gia taught me. At exactly 11:04 a.m., Wade walked in. Same walk. Same smug half-smile. But his jacket didn't fit right anymore. His hairline had crept back, and his skin looked gray under the designer tan. He spotted me, straightened like he was auditioning. Damn, he said, sliding into the chair across from me. You really went full Bond girl, huh? I didn't answer. Just opened my clutch and placed a flash drive on the table. He blinked. What's this? A souvenir? I slid it forward. The full video. The one you never posted. His smirk faltered. You don't have that. Jordan saved it to the cloud. I said, voice level. Public folder. No password. Rookie mistake. He reached for the drive. I put a finger on it. You open this, I said, and you'll see every frame. The blindfold, the screaming, the edits, the laugh track. All of it. Wade's jaw twitched. Okay. And what? This is blackmail? No, I said. This is insurance. You stay quiet. You stay small. You disappear from my life completely. He snorted. That's your plan? I could still go to the press. Leak stuff. Say you faked it all. I smiled. Small and surgical. You could, I said. But then I release this. He stared at me. No bravado now. Just calculation. Desperation. I walked out of that gas station barefoot, I said. I rebuilt myself one export form at a time. I survived without your name. Without your money. Without your noise. He looked down. No snappy comeback. And that silence? That was the closest I'd ever get to an apology. I stood, picked up the flash drive, slipped it back into my clutch. You thought you made me disappear, I said quietly. But I was just getting out of range. I left him sitting there, hands slack in his lap. As I reached the door, he called out, voice hoarse. So what now? I just vanish? I turned back just enough. You already did, Wade. 3 years ago. I just caught up. Outside, Victor's driver was waiting. The door opened silently. I slid into the back seat. close the door on the cafe, and everything it used to mean. And for the first time in my life, I didn't flinch when someone said my name. Because now, it meant power. The package was small, no return address. It arrived on Verité's deck just after sunset, handed off by a courier who vanished before the crew could ask questions. Inside, one photo, Wade, standing outside a gated estate in Lugano, talking to someone I knew too well, Gia. My stomach dropped. Tucked behind the photo was a folded sheet of stationery, her vineyard crest embossed in the corner. One sentence, written in ink I recognized. He knows something we didn't bury deep enough. Behind me, Victor's voice was low. Mel, what exactly did you leave behind? Victor stepped closer, the weight of his question sinking into the deck between us. I stared at the photo again. Wade's hand rested on the gate like he owned it. Gia's expression was unreadable, but her presence said enough. She wouldn't betray me, I whispered. Victor's gaze didn't move from my face. Then what's she protecting? I didn't answer. Because I knew. 3 years ago, after Gia rescued me, there'd been a night, late spring, storm rolling in, when she'd pulled out a fireproof box from the cellar. She'd called it insurance. Inside were documents, not mine, hers, trade deals, under-the-table shipments, and one folder marked VC. To be touched, Victor Carr. My husband, the marriage license, my ID. She hadn't thrown them away, she'd kept them, sealed and hidden. In case you change your mind, she'd said, pouring grappa. In case someone else tries to change it for you. I'd forgotten. Or maybe I'd wanted to forget. But Wade, he must have found that box. Or bribed someone who knew it existed, which meant he didn't just want to ruin me. He wanted leverage. Real leverage. Legal. Tangible. Dangerous. I gripped the railing, salt air biting my throat. Victor spoke again, quiet but firm. If he gets those documents, if he proves dual identity, invalid registration, Interpol might reverse your protections. I know, I said, my voice gravel. That's why we stop him now. He raised an eyebrow. How? I turned. We go back. To the vineyard? No, I said. To where it started. The next day we docked in Genoa. Petra arranged 2 chartered cars. One headed for Lugano, the other for Tuscany. Victor kissed my forehead. Go. I did. The drive to the vineyard was long. Roads I hadn't seen since I was dirt-covered and silent. But they still knew me. The vines still whispered. Gia was waiting near the pergola. She didn't look surprised. I warned him not to come, she said. He came anyway. What did he take? Only a scan, she said. But I made sure it was incomplete. Why? I asked. She looked at me. Older now, softer. Because I knew you'd come back for the real file. She handed me the box, lighter than I remembered, but it hummed like a heartbeat in my arms. I opened it. Everything was still there. Marriage certificate, Nevada ID, a photo of me in a motel bathroom, taken the day after the gas station. I looked like a ghost. I set it all on fire. Every page, flame to ash. Gia didn't blink. Just poured us 2 glasses of wine. You're free now? She asked. I raised my glass. Now I stay free.